Introducing Saras Sarasvathy. It's a great honor to have you here. I mean that. We are working with your methods a long time, and now you're here in our building, in our school, giving us a presentation about a topic that's very special to us. You're a professor of entrepreneurship at the Darden School of Business. Please correct me if I'm wrong. At the University of Virginia. You're globally recognized as the founder of Effectuation, a groundbreaking way of thinking and acting under uncertainty. Your research shaped both by your own and entrepreneurial experience and your doctoral training under the Nobel Prize winner Herbert Simon. I didn't know that, so it's very special. It has transformed the way how we teach, study, and practice entrepreneurship worldwide. Yesterday and the day before was the Effectuation Conference. How many people were there?
90.
90 people from all over the world. I've met some on Sunday. It was from Pakistan, Norway, Germany. You're from?
South Africa.
South Africa.
Actually from Pakistan.
And Pakistan. Yeah.
And now in Germany. So from all over the world. It was very special to talk about it. Today he will share about effectual thinking that can help us innovate, educate, and build resilience in the face of complex challenges. And how entrepreneurial thinking can play a crucial role in shaping a sustainable future. I would like to invite you to the front. A big applause for Saras Sarasvathy.
Well, good morning, everybody. And I always say I have to earn the applause. So, just like Sandra, right? Did you earn it? All right. Thank you for being here. Just to get us started, how many of you have heard and or taught or used effectuation in any way? And absolutely no problem if you haven't. Okay, there are quite a few. See, he was telling me nobody knows. So I apologize in advance if I am repeating things, but my task that Johan gave me, was to cover the basics again, to teach a little bit. And then, so I thought the way I would do it is, I will cover the basics, but I'll tell you, instead of the maybe a different set of stories, I brought in stories that have connections to sustainability, as you will see. And I also take you a little bit out of the norm of just entrepreneurship to think about society at large and hopefully get it all done in like 30 to 40 minutes. So, but the way I would like to proceed is to keep it as interactive as you would like it to be. So feel free to interrupt me anytime. I have a nice slide deck and everything, but I have no problem if we don't make it through to the end of the slide deck, because I know many of you are more experienced either as entrepreneurs or as educators or administrators, policymakers, things like that. So I don't see too many, I don't see any undergraduate students or anything like that. So it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm happy to go wherever you want to go. And before we begin, I want to thank Ruth. I always joked about it and I really want to thank Art, who was the first person who was very instrumental in bringing me to the Netherlands in the first place. And Ruth was telling me yesterday how you sent him to pick me up at the hotel the first time. And then I don't know if you remember, I joked with you, like, wow, who sends a rude person to pick me? And then it turns out that Rude is the sweetest guy ever. And I probably am more rude than rude. Coming from India, I love an argument. Growing up in India, argument is sport. So bring it on, Rude knows that as well. So it's just a delight to be here. Am I holding the mic too close? Is it okay to? Because I also have a very loud voice. I'm not sure I even need the mic, but let me know if I get too loud or if I'm talking too fast. All of that happens. So as I said, I'm just going to cover the basics first. So let's just start with actually the research. I'm sorry, that's not where it's supposed to go. So it's not set up. My bad. Because I didn't bring it back to the home page. So for some reason it began with the other one. So clearly I didn't set it up properly. Okay, so so this is where it all began. I started out as an entrepreneur. I had co-founded 5 ventures before coming into academia, and it drove me crazy that we were not teaching entrepreneurship. And I thought that was a problem in India. And my brother was in the US, and when I came to the US, I realized there was no entrepreneurship PhD program in the US either, which shocked the heck out of me. I mean, they had entrepreneurship courses, but just local entrepreneurs would come and tell their war stories and generalize from their experiences, and nothing wrong with that. But it was like really shocking. But then, you know, the entrepreneur in me also recognizes that's an opportunity. So I decided that I would do a PhD in whichever program they would admit me in. But my thesis would be in entrepreneurship, and luckily there were people doing research in entrepreneurship, even though they didn't have, you know, people were struggling because most universities did not have official positions. So everybody was like a strategy professor or a finance professor or something like that. But there was a cohort, a community of people, and we sort of decided we were going to build entrepreneurship as a formal discipline of research as well as teaching. And so the topic for my dissertation was really to ask this question: what should we be teaching? I was very fortunate to be in Carnegie Mellon University with Herbert Simon, as Johan mentioned. And Herbert Simon is considered, he won the Nobel Prize in Economics, but is considered one of the founding fathers of artificial intelligence because he was a professor of cognitive science, computer science and psychology. And so he was working in cognitive science. So my training is also in cognitive science. My official PhD is in information system. So all that is a mess. But he knew, even from day one of my admission to the PhD program, that I really wanted to work in entrepreneurship, and he was very supportive of that. And they had invented this method. This is the method through which they actually started developing the early expert systems that then turned into AI. So they would go out and look at experts in many different domains, starting with chess players, right? They would go to chess grandmasters. And the whole idea was to study how the chess grandmasters play chess and then turn it into a program so that the computer program can. And the moment you try to write a program, there are some things that work and some things that don't work, which then gives you insights about the human brain. So that's why he became computer science and psychology professor. They would go back and forth, back and forth. That's what they were doing. And his interest was actually in understanding the human mind. Not really just building the computer, but the computer science became this tool, and AI was a side effect of all of that kind of work that they did. So I decided to use that exact same method because they had studied experts in 200 domains, but they had not considered entrepreneurship as a domain, right? So I said, okay, they had not studied entrepreneurs with it. So I said, I'm going to study a bunch of expert entrepreneurs. So for those of you who are curious, I'm going to give a very small definition of what an expert entrepreneur is. An expert entrepreneur is somebody, the way it was defined in the study for sampling the population, it was basically defined as somebody with 15 years or longer, full-time immersive experience, starting and running multiple ventures, including successes and failures. And then, of course, I had good advisors, and they added a constraint. They said, take at least one company public. They said, this is the first study, and you're a PhD student, you have to add that constraint, otherwise people will question the data. So added that. Since then, we have done, as you can see, 2 decades, hundreds of articles have been published. So we studied all kinds of populations. But in the original study, there were only 245 people who qualified. I wrote to all of them, and 45 people participated in the study. The reason I'm telling you this, people think that I was in a bathtub and I had this brilliant idea and they came up with effectuation. No, I did not. It came directly from the experiences of these entrepreneurs who had built companies in every industry you can imagine. And it was really, really hard, especially having been an entrepreneur. I thought I knew a thing or two about it, right? And it was very humbling to look at the data and realize I had no clue what I had learned, right? And that's why the method is very useful, because the method, it's like I tell my students, if you want to learn golf, you want to learn it from Tiger Woods, and the answer should be no, because Tiger doesn't know how exactly he does it. You need to learn it from Tiger's dad, who was his coach all his life, right? So it's that kind of thing, right? The research, the data gets you to what people have actually learned, not what they think they have learned. Although what they think they have learned can also be very useful and powerful, because it influences how they deal with things in the world. So it was just as fascinating. So let me take a moment, if you have any questions on the research from which what I'm going to talk about today, because the rest of the time I'm just going to describe the findings. Anybody have a question? No? It's okay? Maybe you don't care, but nowadays that's one of the things people say, oh, we get that thing, we don't care where it came from. And so that's fine. So, yes, sure.
So is there, maybe you will tell us later on, but is there a differentiation between what kind of companies they are? So from the big multinational to the small enterprises?
Yeah. So the original sample, these were people who have built very large companies, all for profit, in every industry you can imagine. That was the original study. But then since then, people have studied all kinds, not just me. There's a lot of people, there are comparisons with small businesses, international businesses, women-owned enterprises, social enterprises, so there are all kinds of things. But the interesting thing here, this is why when you say what are expert entrepreneurs expert in, doesn't matter, it's not the industry expertise we were. The real lessons are about society. The real lessons are about resources. And the heart of it is truly uncertainty, right? How do you act? How do you make decisions? How do you think? When the future is fundamentally unknowable, so it's not just the unknown, it's the unknowable future. But your own goals are a little ambiguous. It's not like you know exactly what you want to do. You are also a little ambiguous. And the problem is not you don't have enough information. The problem is there's too much overwhelming information. And under uncertainty, you don't know what information is relevant and what is not. So when all three of these problems are present, how do you think? How do you decide? How do you act? That is what they become experts in. So you can apply it to all kinds of things in the world. And that's why later on I'll talk about it, because I actually think that this is the findings, the heuristics of effectuation are a method like the scientific method. So it's like asking what kinds of domains of science can scientific method apply to, and the answer has to be all. Not perfectly, but it gives you enough of a general framework that you can approach anything from, physics to neuroscience to even some of the social sciences, right? So it is kind of the basis for a general framework, and that is why I think I'm even justified in coming in and addressing something like sustainability, because that is not my expertise. That's why I want to keep it interactive. You ask questions, you know more about it than I know. All I will do is to try to apply what I know to your interests and questions, things like that. Okay, so this is basically like the big, 33,000 feet view. The way I will do is I'll give you the big bottom line, and slowly we'll get into details. So if you look at the findings, just from the original study, the most important thing that came out was that these expert entrepreneurs, not only the reason they're good at dealing with those problems of uncertainty that I told you is because they actually deal with that all the time, and so they fundamentally distrust prediction, right? So when the future is uncertain, one way you can think about it is say, I need to get better at predicting the future, right? Another way is to say, you know what, this is fundamentally unpredictable, so we are wasting time when we try to predict. So we have to make decisions without using predictive information. And that's why both are useful, but this is what the effectual logic where it says that we have to be able to think about control without prediction, became the core of what these expert entrepreneurs use in trying to deal with uncertainty. So then this raises a very nice philosophical question. How do you control a future that is fundamentally unpredictable? Because when you look at this, it sounds kind of cool. And then you look at the question and okay, that does not make any sense. So let me give you the bottom line on that one first. So the bottom line is that you're not predicting the future, but you say what is within my control. You're always working with things within your control to shape and influence and create the future, but you do not create it alone. It's a co-creation model. And who are you co-creating with? Again, remember, uncertainty, isotropic information, and your goals are ambiguous. So you cannot choose, here is a person with whom I will control and shape the future. You work with anyone and everyone who wants to work with you. So this is a bunch of self-selected stakeholders that you will co-create. Okay? We are still like at the, a level of a low-flying plane, but we are still at that level. So let's go one more level deeper. Here's a slightly more specific way of thinking about it. Right? All of science sort of teaches us how can we learn information from the world, from nature, in such a way, and the way we test it is, if we actually have learned something, then we can make a little prediction, we can have a hypothesis. And why do we care about prediction in the first place? Because prediction leads to control, right? So in fact, there are philosophers of science who would say that prediction is control, right? So it's a vanishing point, this relationship between prediction and control. Expert entrepreneurs are taking that vanishing point and making it into a space. So the moment you separate out the two dimensions of prediction and control, you get this nice space, which especially management school professors, we love that, 2 by 2, right? So we get 2 by 2, and that gives us 4 quadrants that I will explain. But you can also even do all kinds of other things, because it's really like a space. We can also move the thing in between and talk about how that happens over time. We can go wherever you want. I'm just giving you a glimpse. But we'll start with the 2 by 2, which gives us 4 nice quadrants. And my students actually named this thing as the cave framework, and you'll see in a minute why that is. Because high in prediction and low in control is what we call causal, where you have a clear goal in mind, a clear effect you want to create, and you think about how can I create that effect. Or you can be low in prediction and control, so you have to be adaptive and resilient, and you're just simply nimble. You're reacting to things. So that's the adaptive quadrant. And this is, everybody thinks this is the dream quadrant, right? I'm the visionary. I know exactly what I want, and I will make it happen. But then the expert entrepreneurs are in the bottom right, where they don't believe that the future is predictable, but they say just by working with things within our control, we can actually build the future, so we don't need to predict it. So you can see this is what my students call the cave framework. That's a cooler name than all the stuff I was writing about causal and effectual and so on. So I'm sticking with it, and everybody seems to love it. So now I'm going to go deeper into that quadrant. Again, feel free to raise your hand and interrupt me anytime if you have a question. So let's go now. I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to walk you through the 5 principles of effectuation. Then I'm going to show you how that works in a process. And then I'm going to tell you some stories of entrepreneurs, how they're, and that's primarily what I have for the rest of the talk. Okay, so let's go into the principles here. So again, to introduce the principles, let's just translate the 2 by 2 into simple action. So let's say you're an entrepreneur or a student who wants to become an entrepreneur, and they say, I don't know what to do. And you can give 4 kinds of answers. Like one set of answers are, you you need to be very quick, you need to be flexible because you don't quite know or you don't have the resources or whatever. So practice agility, be nimble, be quick to respond. You'll see later on things like resilience will come in there. This whole thing nowadays people just call pivot. And then upper left is where we used to be when we first got into entrepreneurship as a field of research. The dominant theme, there were two dominant themes. One was traits, which is in the visionary quadrant, like successful entrepreneurs are just special people, right? They are very different from us ordinary human beings. That was, thank goodness we killed that, I hope. But the other one was the planning, right? It's all about predicting the future, doing market research, doing financial projections, coming up with business plans. So that is a plan quadrant. And this is the follow your passion, pitch, persist, persuade, that quadrant. But I do want to take a moment to emphasize that all are important, right? If we are teaching entrepreneurs, we don't want to be saying this is the right thing and those are all the wrong things. Because all of us live in the prediction control space and we have to navigate it. The thing is to build judgment on what to do when and not take any one thing, planning and apply it all the time. Or pivoting and apply it all. It doesn't work, right? So we have to have a judgment of where we are and we have to match where we are with what we are doing. So it is just that there was virtually nothing in this quadrant when we started working on this particular stream that came out of expert entrepreneurs. So we could fill that quadrant out now, right? And so that's what I'm going to do. For those of you who are familiar with Lean Startup goes that way. I'll show you a more detailed one later on if we have time. So here comes the 5 principles. And if you want all 4 P's, so you can think about this as, persist, plan, pivot, and this one is going to be co-create, or if you want a P, you can say partner, right? All right, here you go. So here are the 5 principles. Notice that every one of them is low in prediction and always divides the world into things within your control, things outside your control. It only focuses on what is within your control and say, what can you do with that? So I'll introduce the principles, and when we get to the stories, they might make more sense, but I just thought I'd give you the frame first. So here we go. So normally, all decision theories, or if you're writing an AI algorithm or decisions, whatever it is, they always begin with some kind of a goal or a clear goal. So they're goal-driven strategy. The entrepreneurs just start with their needs. They just divide the what's within my control, what's not within my control. And given what's within my control, what can I do? Right? So it's very means-driven. So you can see the inversion there. So you're asking yourself, given things within my control, what kinds of effects can I create? And then you start thinking about some risks. And the way you think about risks in the traditional way is you project future cash flows, you project risks into the future, and then you calculate the risk-adjusted return, and then you say, this is a good investment or something like that. The expert entrepreneurs are again doing the inverse. They're asking, what am I willing and able to lose to do the things that I can do with things already within my control? And so this is the affordable loss principle, and it does 2 things. Not only does it keep the downside within your control, you need to choose what the downside will be, and you will risk no more than what you are what you can afford to lose. But it also does something very interesting on the upside. This one may be particularly interesting for those of us interested in other issues, social issues like sustainability or poverty reduction, things like that. Because there, it also forces you to confront the downside and say, do I still want to do this particular venture this way, even if I lose, right? It really, even if you just think you're starting a company to make money, it forces you to look at the non-economic upside in a way, because what are you willing to lose for it immediately gets you into things you care about, things you value versus things you don't value. That's interesting to see.
Yes. Loss is not only about money, it's also about other things.
That's right. Thank you for reminding. So when you think about loss, it's not only money that you're losing. time, reputation, sometimes relationships. Right? I tell my students all the time this idea that the Silicon Valley notion that you have to be go, 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 at any cost, that are, all times of the day and night and things like that. That only leads to a lot of successful entrepreneurs with very successful second marriages. Right? And I tell them, like, you have to consider affordable loan. And I'll give you example after example of ventures where people have actually designed a life, right? Where so you don't have people, you're deciding you're not going to allow this to be lost. And if that's important to you, there are ways you can build the venture because you get to decide what you're willing to lose, what what you can afford to lose. And that is one of the interesting lessons for young people as well as teachers that we can bring to the table. So it's not only, in fact, it's almost not money at all. That's the other thing. In fact, my colleague, it was Jim, he was in the very first class I taught at London. And now, of course, he has gone off to build like 5 companies and he's come back into my life and we teach together. So we actually wrote a technical note very recently, literally called Doing Away with the Middleman. And who's the middleman? Money. So we teach entire things on how to build great ventures without money. And some of the examples I'll show you when I get to the stories, you will see that. Because people think I have to have the money, then I can go hire the person. And that's how I have to build the venture. And you will see company after company, social venture after social venture. I can go on every kind of organization that was built with very, very little money. But the real thing is how I could invest your time, your mind space, your relationships. And we'll get to that in a second. Which is, in a way, the next principle is the crazy quilt principle. This is the most important, kind of the hardest to teach. And the last almost like 15 years or more, this is where a lot of my own effort and my close collaborators, we have spent a lot of time on that. So the idea here is, so you are trying to create some effects, trying to build something with things within your control. You're investing no more than you can afford to lose. And of course, you cannot do it alone. So you're trying to bring people on board. And how do you bring people on board when you are yourself investing nothing more than you can afford to lose, and you have no idea what the upside will actually be? You cannot promise a particular expected return. How do you work with people? Hence the crazy quill. You will talk to anybody and everybody, and whoever wants to come on board for their affordable loss, you will think a little bit and join together. That's why it's a crazy quilt. It's all about all kinds of partnerships, partnering relationships with a variety of people, many of whom you don't even know would be your partner. And we're going to talk about how do you do that. But this is the most important principle because this kickstarts the relational process of information. But along the way, all the things that are outside your control are not sitting there waiting for you, right? They're going to throw, lemons get thrown at you. So you also have to learn how to make lemonade. You have to always deal with incoming. So you also have to think about an effectual way of reacting to the unexpected. And then finally, the overall idea here is you're not trying to predict the future. You're actually trying to create it, co-create it with people. But the idea is the future comes from what we do. The emphasis, it can be good, bad, or ugly, but it comes from what we do more than it comes from, all the trends and the knowledge and where everybody says it is going to happen. And we've all seen that in our own lifetime again and again. So it should not be a huge thing. It's just a question of how do you then get to shape that uncertain future. That's really the last principle. As I said, I'm just going to show you one more slide where I'm going to take these exact same 5 principles, but show you over time, iteratively in a process, what happens. After that is question and story time. Okay, so here we go. There's the effect of the process. So day 1, and I literally do this. I'm currently teaching, starting new ventures course, and first year of class, I literally tell them this. I'll give you all of tonight. Right? And tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up as an entrepreneur. But before you go to bed tonight, Look at who am I? What do I know? Whom do I know? You don't even have to think about what do I have, right? You just think about who you are, what you know, whom you know, and you say, what can I do given who I am, what I know, and whom I know? What can I do for affordable loss? And as I come up with something, it doesn't have to be world changing, new idea, nothing. It can be something very, very simple that you can start like tomorrow morning. And what do you do tomorrow morning? You start talking to people. And you talk to anybody and everybody. And when you are talking, what do? So those of you who know about effectuation, when you're talking with people, what are you doing? Aha, you thought you can just keep quiet, right? What are you doing? Connect, sure. But that is too connect. What does that mean? Go on a date? Like what? Connect is too general. Be more specific. You're an entrepreneur trying to build something.
I think you try to find out if you are on the same level or if the other to whom you're talking to.
Absolutely. So chemistry is very important. Values are important. Yeah. And then what else? First of all, how do you find that out? Okay, by listening to each other. Okay, and then yes,
It's like you have ping-pong ball, and it's a wall, and people on the wall, and you're constantly getting the feedback.
okay. So you're going to use feedback. So let's say you come up with an idea, and I tell you that's a piece of crap. Why are you wasting your time doing it? And what is the reaction?
It will make you only better because that's how you create an idea. The more different perspectives you get, the more you get an image of what you want, and in the meantime, you create a coalition of the willing of people who are intrinsically motivated to come on board.
But I'm telling you, your idea is really bad. Come work with me on my idea. Let me tell you what that is. How do you feel?
Where's the overlap, and how can we get each other to get better?
Okay. So you would be open to my telling you, don't do that, do this with me.
I love people who say that most.
Okay. So I can send you a bill of goods here. So I can get you to come work with me on my venture.
Depends.
So what would you look for if I have to get you to work on my venture?
I need to feel passion and I need to see it. If I don't see it, I won't do it.
Okay. See what? What can I show you?
I have to see the image. It's somehow intuition. You have to feel it because when you feel it in the other person and you can see the image together.
Okay, all right. So at the very least, you have to have it. It has to speak to you in a way. Let's say it speaks to you, and now I want you to take 6 months off of your job and come work with me. It speaks to you, and I'm awesome. We have great chemistry.
I will peel off the what's it called? The priorities I have at that moment and make a section.
Okay.
And fill it out.
Yeah. So you are going to be carving out your affordable loss, right? You're not just going to leave your job and come right away, right? Exactly. These are the kinds of things we want to explore on what happens in that box. So it's truly not just feedback. So what you have to ask for is you have to ask for a commitment. So I very quickly moved you and asked you for a commitment, right? But the moment I ask you for a commitment, you think differently. It's no longer just about whether, so at the minimum, we need value, shared values, we need chemistry, the idea itself has to inspire all of that. But then to move to action, I have to ask you for something very specific, and you have to figure out whether you can afford to carve it out to do it as well, right? So this is one of the big differences in when we teach effectuation versus any other of the toolkits, because it is not about information about the future, right? It's truly what are you actually willing to commit as of today, and it doesn't have to be very much. And she might probably tell me, you know what, I can't leave the job or anything. But maybe every Saturday I can set aside half an hour. Let me go talk to my family. If they're okay with my killing their weekend for next 6 months, you know, I will be available. So people are thinking with you on what can they possibly do with you because you already have them. So I always say you have to have many, many things. Information, feedback, chemistry, value sharing, all of that has to happen. Otherwise, the conversation doesn't move forward. But the conversation doesn't end without commitment. If the conversation ends without commitment, you got nothing. The feedback is useless. I mean, you can think it is useful, and maybe it will be useful or not, but you're still placing a bet. Right? But if somebody actually comes to it, now I can think about, okay, I have this one, so now how do I want to proceed? And the only reason good people will want to be a part of it, so the reason I want your commitment is I want new means. And that sets aside, sets in motion this expanding cycle. And very quickly, day 2 or day 3, it becomes who we are, what we know, and whom we know. The moment she said, even if Saturdays, but the thing is, it becomes a little bit of a partnership, and I can call her and talk to her once in a while, and maybe she can introduce me to other people, all kinds of things happen. So it becomes who we are, what we know, whom we know. But the only reason she might want to invest even that much is she sees something. She has her own vision of my idea. That's the only way this relationship will happen. So that means I have to be flexible on exactly how I think about it. That's why the two of us together may come up with something totally new. It's not that I work on your venture, you work on my venture. The idea is, can we come up with something new that works for both of us for different reasons? And so this sets up a converging cycle, and this becomes about what can we and can we not do together. So both these cycles are in motion. And along the way, the world outside will also change our burden hand. Something might happen, right? Something personal might happen. Law might change, whatever it may be, that all kinds of things, uncertain things can hit both the burden hand and the affordable law. But so long as this cycle keeps going, because even when that happens, we're still going to talk to more people, and then we're going to redo the thing over and over again. As the process goes through it, you get not just a new venture or a new product or things like that. You actually end up creating things that nobody in this process might actually have envisioned ahead of time. That's why it is not the visionary quadrant, right? It is the effectual quadrant actually creates things, because every step of the way is underwritten by commitments, real commitments, not just promises. So. And here is the real reason that a lot of the expert entrepreneurs love this way of thinking, because it's not about probability of success or failure. It's about what happens. If success happens, innovation just comes along for the ride. You don't have to be the genius who came up with the idea in the first place. And so magnitude of success is likely to be higher. But if failure happens, nobody loses more than they can afford to lose. So all of us get multiple shots at the pot. So the cost of failures are lower. Yes. And that also gives me a chance to sip water. Please ask your question.
Can you maybe explain what is the common grounds here? When you don't share a vision or a goal in the future.
Yeah.
What is driving you forward and connecting with other people?
The delight of what we can actually get done today, tomorrow, in the next 2 weeks. Because we can actually do something.
In the problems, there was a square for you, right?
Yeah.
That's visionary.
Yes.
So then you can see something and inspiring people to reach that future.
Correct.
And what is the vision?
It's inspiring people to actually build the future that neither of us actually had a vision for. But both of us can do it.
Do we see the same future then?
No, not necessarily.
No.
But we see the same immediate actionable future. We are going to build this machine, or we are going to build this platform or website or something, irrespective of whether that will actually become that down the road, because we don't know whether 1 million people will actually want that or not. But we both believe that we can get it done for affordable law, so why not do it, put it out there, and maybe, that will be 1 million people, maybe there will be nobody.
So you see the next step together?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to see the next step together in a very actionable way. It has to be something that we can actually accomplish for affordable laws. It doesn't have to be that, we have to do it because it will then, we say, oh, what have we got to lose by actually building this? But it's always driving you through interaction to action and building.
Let's see what happens next.
Yeah, and then both of us together now are going to try other things, right? So we got two people trying many different things on how to sell it or how to fund it or whatever the next step we see together. But the next step also we're going to ask somebody else to do the same with us. What is it that you can do with us, right? So whether we are talking to investors, whether we are talking to potential employees, or in fact, I give my students an assignment. Next time you're on a plane, turn to the person next to you and ask them for $100,000. And for people are like, barely have an idea of what I'm asking. The reason I put the money thing is people are most embarrassed to ask for that. That's why it's too easy to ask for help, for feedback. So I tell them, no, ask them for real money. So the first thing you'll have to do is to get into conversation with that person. And it might turn out to be, they cannot really give you 100,000, but they could probably give you 10,000, right? So that I tell them that it's the art of asking and interacting that you want. And especially, I don't want you to be afraid to ask for commitment. So start at the really scary end. And then eventually you will get very good at figuring out what is it that they can give you for their affordable loss, right? But the idea is to be unafraid to ask people, and all you're trying to do, in fact, I tell sometimes the students will say, I have this assignment from class and I have to ask you for it, right? They will do that, and then the person just gets curious. What are you trying to do? What is this class? And they end up doing, and the student comes back with a whole other idea they want to build, and that's fine. Right? So that's all you're trying to do. The idea here is always doing something actionable and actually building things that you can imagine at least two other people will want to be a part of. That's all you're thinking of. So you're not thinking about the big idea can still be your inspiration. I'm not saying give up your vision, but I'm saying if you have vision and you're only trying to do that one thing, you've narrowed down your world too much. Have the vision, but do the doable today with the person who is actually willing to do, so you are expanding this network right away, right? So it's not either or either. And when we get to the stories, you will see that in a minute. Yes.
So, belief in serendipity is really important.
Yes, you're opening the door to serendipity. Absolutely.
Okay. I also have a question. Is there a specific reason why the listening part is on the first two and not also on the other two? Because I can believe.
That's a good question. What do you think? It's an excellent question. In fact, nobody has asked this question. It's a brilliant question. So let me have your view of why that might be. Because we did have, when we worked with my three colleagues, we did argue all that. So I just want to know, well, why do you think? Because every arrow here we have thought a little. I'm not saying this is perfect, but some thinking has gone into it. But people never ask that question. So brilliant. Why do you think?
Beginning of the process, and most surprises can be in that part. You change who you believe you are, or what you think you can do. Maybe that's the reason.
Partly. But remember, this is all about interaction with others and commitment. But they are also there already here.
Yeah.
So it can change, like the people who actually want to work with you now suddenly can. So like I mentioned, she's bringing me on board her venture, and something happens. Maybe I get divorced and I have to move. Something happens, right? And I'm no longer available to her, even if I might have. So that's the kind of thing, right? So this appears twice here. The people thing is so important here. So it can change whether she's available, but it may still not change the commitment. She might get on Zoom and work with me. That we'll have to read. We still have the option of continuing to work with them, but also of getting more people on board.
Precisely.
Yeah. So this only affects these two things, but this is still always within our control. Right?
But if you start the process with each other, with your new stakeholders, it could mean that the business idea changes.
Absolutely.
And you should go and find new stakeholders. So those
No, you're going too fast. The business idea changes doesn't necessarily mean we need new stakeholders, number one. Number two, if the business idea doesn't change, we still need more stakeholders. right? So stakeholder interaction is always going to be important on both sides of the equation,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. Look at this, ask questions to yourself. This is how new insights come. So the stakeholder interaction is always important, but in some cases the idea changes. In some cases the idea may not change. Sometimes it just branches out. We'll be working on 2 or 3 different ideas at the same, or different models of the same idea.
Yeah.
So all of those things can happen, but the stakeholder drives the process.
Yeah, but I can believe that the stakeholder commitment is really crucial at the same time. So yeah, I can also expect to eliminate, because if you're all really visionaries and have an idea and you're going for that idea, the commitment is maybe the hardest
That's
part.
why this is not the visionary one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That is why when I interviewed the expert entrepreneurs afterwards and say, you are known all over the internet. I mean, you're like this visionary. And then, people say, but it is the people who actually became to the visionary through this process. I can tell you all the different things that I was visionary about that didn't work, including Steve Jobs. Interesting.
Now we have 15 minutes left.
Okay.
I want to ask the questions. You can still put them up for the fireside.
Yeah.
You can, perfect.
Yeah, please. That would be
So
good.
I'll go put the question there, and then I'll proceed with.
So that way I can get to the stories.
Yes.
And I love the stories myself. So that's a great idea. Let's have the story. Please make sure you don't lose track of your question. Feel free to ask them, and you can also email them afterwards if you didn't get a chance to react. Because I learned from questions a lot more. All right. So here we go. Okay, I don't even, this is what happens when you do a slide deck. You don't know. Let me go to the stories first. And then we can always come back to this if we want to. Come on. So I have 5 stories for the 5 principles, but you will see that every story has all 5 principles, and we don't have to get through all 5 of them either. So here's the first one of my favorite because it came out of my class. I'm very, very proud of it. This is Husk Power Systems in India. This is an organization, this is a company. They're both for-profit and non-profit wings. They make electricity out of rice husk. And so here is the, you look at this, you think that is a prototype? No, that is the actual power plant. They 2 students from Darden, and they had one engineer who had graduated and was already there in the village in Bihar. And so it was actually Ganesh who came up with the idea because he was in engineering school and he was learning about biomass, energy sources. And he was thinking of the, in these villages where they grow rice or wheat, the husk is just little mountains along the road. They just leave it there. And it emits methane, which is very bad for the environment. And as an engineer, he realizes, why aren't we using that to create electricity? Because in the villages around the town where he grew, there was no electricity. And so he thought this is the great idea. And then people immediately told him, oh, it's going to cost like a couple $100,000 to do the biomass thing, and you're going to go to the rural areas. And this particular area, Bihar, is a very, very difficult state. We have people kidnapped, and the Maoists roaming the countryside, kidnapping people and all kinds of stuff. It was a very, very tough place to do this. And they said, if you do, and lots of government corruption, if you do manage to put up the biogas plant and the people are too poor, they're illiterate, they just steal the electricity. So there's absolutely no way this can be profitable, and that is why they haven't done it yet. So people kept saying. So what he did was he said, I'm going to go into the village and just look at what is available within the village. And he takes things that are within the village, gets a couple of things really cheap, and teaches the villagers to build this power plant. And each power plant can electrify just 20 houses. That's it. So they invent the idea of the mini grid, first of all. And then they think, how do we get people to actually pay for it? And here where the large stories come in. And they go to IDEO and say, we need to have a way to have prepaid electricity. And the idea there is, why do people want electricity? Initially, you would think it's for light. No, that it is still cheap to use a kerosene lamp, right? We cannot compete with that. People wanted to charge their mobile phones, right? And why mobile phones? Because if you have a mobile phone, then you can create sources of income. Even if all you're doing is growing some tomato plants and taking to the nearest village. With the mobile phone, you know which village to walk to. Otherwise, everybody, all the tomatoes end up in one village, and the customers in other villages get nothing, and prices go down there. Right? This is like classic microeconomics at work that makes everything messed up if you don't have communication, right? And so that's what they wanted for. So they figured out that the way mobile phone work is they prepay for charging the mobile, for the number of minutes you have on the mobile phone, and every month you go and replenish it. And they said we should do the same thing because people are familiar with that. So they went to IDEO to create a little meter that somebody in the village will come knock on your door and say, how much electricity do you need this month? And the way they ask is really how many. So people will say, I have a sewing machine because that's how I make my money. And then I need something for entertainment and something for light, fan, whatever it may be. So they literally say what they want to use electricity for, and they convert it. The person will convert it and charge your meter up for you. And then when it runs down, you have to call that person again, and they'll come back and charge again. So they invented this. The big innovation was really the meter, so people could prepay for electricity. And thousands of villages in Bihar now get electricity from Husk Power Systems, and now they are also moving to rural areas inside Africa. They also have, because this is a for-profit company, they made a lot of money as well, and they're always, mobile phone companies are always trying to buy them, and they resisted, but now they're doing big solar installation, they're doing all kinds of other things as well. So here we go. So this is Husk Power Systems for you. And as I said, at that time, they're still very proud of the fact that they brought electricity to Bihar, but now they are in renewable energy in a big way around the world. So this is another one. This is the very first self-made female billionaire in China. And she was in the 80s, she was working in an import-export company. And she notices that China is importing more and more and more paper. She gets very curious, why is China importing so much paper? And can anybody remember what happened in the 80s in China and the world? You were all too young, I think. China was just beginning to open up and become the manufacturer of the world. And so they were shipping goods around the world, but primarily to the US. And the US loves packaging. So there are lots and lots of cartons are being sent from China. All these manufactured goods were packed in cartons they were sending to the US, and they have to keep buying more paper for cartons. And so she looks at it and says, what's happening to all the cartons that are going to the US, right? Because this is imported cartons are just getting more and more expensive, and medium-sized manufacturers are not able to even compete as well because the carton price is killing them. And so she reads some newspaper articles and she finds that what do we do with that in the US? Throw them away. So she has about $5,000 worth of currency. She comes to the US and starts talking to people who are running, trash businesses like the big dumping grounds of trash. And when she goes and says, I want to, take these cartons back to China and build a recycling plant. And then to her pleasant surprise, now this is the kind of lemon we want, they say they're actually willing to pay her if she will take a shipping container load of cartons, right? So somebody is willing to collect it and give it to her. And then she says, how do I shipping container load of cartons? How do you get it back to China? Any ideas, anybody? For affordable loss.
Ships and planes.
Yeah, so the ships are coming back empty. So she goes, talks to them, what have you got to lose by allowing me to import a few containers because they're giving it to me. And then I don't know if this business will actually work, but if it works, we can talk a deal. But for now, I just need you to do me a favor. And they are happy to do it. It's not a big deal. So she brings them back to China. And then she creates this partnership with these medium-sized manufacturers who would benefit the most, who cannot afford to import. They're paying importers and wholesalers a lot of money, but they're all in manufacturing. They know, she knows nothing about manufacturing. She just worked in an import. But she partners with them, creates, I think there were 8 companies, and they built the first recycling plant. It's called 9 Dragon Paper. So for something like $5,000, she builds this amazing, something like a $90 million recycling plant, something like that, all through partnerships. And and the company is alive and well and doing. Okay, so this is another one. I can keep going, and you can also stop me and watch the time. So this is my colleague Stuart Reed wrote a fabulous case on this. If you ever want to do a teaching case, this is the story of TerraCycle, Tom Zaki, and in college dorm as an undergraduate, he's from Canada originally, and he found a friend in Canada who was growing weed, basically. He calls them special plants, but that kid could not afford fertilizer or anything. But they figured it out because of the biology background that if you just use worm poop, right? If you grow a bunch of worms, their poop is an amazing fertilizer, and these plants are growing like crazy. So he thinks that would be a great business. So can I actually make it larger and really make fertilizers for all kinds of plants? And there's all kinds of ups and downs. If you want to think about the crazy quill, you have to read the case. It is incredible. From there, he goes to becoming, you have this TerraCycle thing in most things. If you see the TerraCycle logo on a product, and the product can be made by P&G or General Mills or any of these big companies, if you see that, it means you can just ship them for free, zero waste boxes, because they're working with the big manufacturers and the big brands to either recycle it fully, 100%, or they use the waste to build other kinds of products that they sell in combination with social ventures all over the country. It's a now it's publicly traded and doing very, very well. So this is the TerraCycle story. And their entire model now is zero waste partnerships. Okay, so just to show you that, I'm sure for some reason I couldn't get the highest quality pictures, so sorry about that. But you can look them up online. And then now we come to another story that I love, which is Big Belly Solar. And this is John Paws. And John Paws was absolutely passionate about the environment. All he wanted to do was renewable energy. Right, so he goes on as again undergraduate at Babson College, working with 2 engineering students, also undergraduates, and he comes up with. So he thinks it's great because he comes up with all these lovely business plans for renewable energy. That he does geo, he does wind. Every single time their team wins the business plan competition, but nobody wants to fund them. They think it's too big. You guys are too young, and you can't. So they get really depressed. So over beer, they think we won something like $30,000 in business plan competitions when we try to build a renewable energy company with $30,000. Like what are we going to do? And they have really big plans, right? They want to build gigantic geo projects outside the Boston Harbor. That kind of thing. There was no way they were going to do it. So I don't know whether it was the beer or whatever it is. He asked the engineering students, what can we do with $30,000? They look at it and say, you know what? We could, put a couple of solar cells on top of a trash can and use the solar cells to compress the waste so that the number of times the trash van has to come pick it up. So they start doing the math on a piece of napkin and they say, that is still pretty significant impact. And we can do that. We have more. In fact, we don't need $30,000 to do that. And so they end up going and building Big Belly Solar. This is kind of ridiculous because this is still manufactured in Boston and sent around the world. And this is Chalmers University in Sweden. And I go there and that is and they are big proponents of sustainability. I'm like, why the heck are you buying Big Belly solar from Boston? I mean, you can do this yourself. Anyway, so this is a fun. And the only reason this innovation even came about it was because their big plans were not funded. And but they still ended up doing something that is having a pretty large impact because around the world now people use Big Belly solar. I came to the end, hopefully.
Yeah.
So this is the final one, but this is larger than sustainable. This is about society and humanity and all kinds of things that are happening around the world, especially with the women entrepreneurs. But a lot of them are also doing very sustainable, innovative things in places, in countries in Africa, South America, Asia, the global south, as we call them. So this is a UVA alum, Jackie Novogratz, who built Acumen Fund. You would think it's just a simple microfinance company originally, but I'm going to play the video. It's just about 3 minutes. So you're going to give me a couple of extra minutes, I hope. And she's going to tell you the story of 2 Rwandas. And this is also a very illustrative of effectuation because you can see that she first went, she was like a, rookie entrepreneur and coming from investment perspective, very causal, thinking about things. And you will see each lesson that we learned. And then she learned that 30 years later, she goes back to Rwanda and she's talking about, so this is an illustration of the pilot in the plane. So I just want to play that and let you make whatever you make of it. But listen for the 2 stories.
Kigali, Rwanda, 1986. I'm a 25-year-old former banker standing in a field of sunflowers on a bright, sunshiny day. And standing next to me is a bespectacled, apple-cheeked nun named Caligula. We're in that sunflower seed to dream of creating the country's first microfinance bank. And we're there to visit with oil pressing businesses, examples of the tiny kinds of ventures that our bank will fund. We'll call our enterprise Tukedemide. It means to go forward with enthusiasm, and all I see is upside. 2016, Kigali, Rwanda. Now I'm the 55-year-old CEO of a global organization named Acumen. It's night. The sky is midnight blue, and I'm standing speaking to President Kagame and his ministers, telling them about the launch we intend to do of a $70 million off-grid solar fund to bring clean, affordable electricity to 10 million low-income people across East Africa. Now I understand not just the upside, but the downside risks of what change are about, and yet still I'm confident that we'll pull this one off. Right before I get on stage to make my speech, a young woman in a Navy suit walks up to me and says, "Novogratz, I think you knew my auntie." I said, "Really? What was her name? Because so many of my friends have been killed in the genocide." And she said her name was Caligula. And all of a sudden my eyes welled with tears. I said, Caligula, I haven't heard her name in decades. And suddenly I was back again in that sunflower field, remembering the day that Caligula was murdered in a hit-and-run accident, really for daring to reject the status quo and standing for women's rights. That was the time I understood the high stakes of change. I said, who are you again? And she said, my name is Monique. I'm the Deputy General of the Central Bank. And if you had asked me in 1986, or any of my co-founders, when women had just gotten the right to open a bank account without their husband's signature, you had said to us that in 30 years, we wouldn't just be improving women's economic condition, which was our mission, but that a young woman in the next generation would be running the financial system, and that Rwanda would have more women parliamentarians than any country on the planet. I'm not sure we would have believed you. Maybe our dreams were too small. And I understood in that moment that I was there, back in that same place, to be reminded that I, like all of you, stand on the shoulders of greats who came before. And that I was there simply to complete work that Caligula and women like her had started but could not complete in their lifetime. And that in this moment in history, it is to each of us to take on dreams that are so big, we can't complete them in our lifetime.
So, to dreams we cannot even imagine, we cannot even dream today, let alone complete, but there are small things we can complete. So, in that spirit, I'm going to end the talk, and hopefully, we'll have questions and discussions later in the afternoon. Thank you.